All right, so we're now at the end of Unit 3, and the last activity we're going to do is 3.9, Statistics and Quality. And the purpose of this activity is to use the actual wooden cubes that we're going to build our puzzle cube with and determine whether or not the size of each of the individual cubes is within, let's say, 2 standard deviations of the mean of your data set. So your data set will be the 27 cubes that you use to build your puzzle cube project. An important thing I want to point out is that the measurements that we take today within this activity are going to be from the end grain to the end grain on the wood. So if you look at the pieces of wood, kind of like the little rings that you would see on a big piece of wood for every year of growth, that's where we're going to be measuring, from the end grain to the end grain. The reason for that is that these wood pieces are cut off of a long rod and they're cut along the end grain. So if there's any variance in the size, it would be between end grain to end grain. Okay, so when you take your measurements, make sure that you're measuring the same way on each cube from then on. So they're using 27 wooden cubes. I want you to number each one in pencil. Don't do it in pen because I don't want to see the numbers once you actually build your final puzzle cube piece. We want to do it in pencil so it's light. Number each one and then measure the end grain to end grain and record your measurements. Now, you can do it in the Word document, but it would probably be best to do it just directly in an Excel spreadsheet because we're going to use Excel to determine some of the statistical analysis that we need for this activity. So rather than doing it in the Word document, I would do it right in the spreadsheet and record your measurements. We can use the data analysis tool to get our descriptive statistics, and that would give us mean, our median, mode, range, and we're going to look for sample standard deviation for this activity. With that information, then we're going to create a histogram. We're looking for whether or not our data is normally distributed. Are most of our data points clustered around the center? And as we get away from the center, are we finding fewer and fewer? It says to print out this, your spreadsheet, but we're not going to print it out. I'm having you create a PDF out of it and you can submit it on the LMS. Then we need to look at whether or not, beyond it being normally distributed, whether or not we have kind of any outliers. Of the 27 cubes, are there any of the cubes, and it'll be pretty obvious on your histogram, that fall outside of 2 standard deviations of your mean? So if I know what the mean is, and I've calculated standard deviation, if I double that standard deviation and I add and subtract that from the mean, it kind of gives me a range. Do I have any cubes that are smaller than that or larger than that? If so, we're going to replace them. When we actually glue these together, we want the fit to be, we want them to fit together well, and so we want to make sure that all the cubes fall within 2 standard deviations of your mean. If you have any that don't, I will replace them with some of the extra cubes. We're going to answer the questions within this activity along with the conclusion questions at the bottom. Each of you is going to receive a bag with 27 cubes in it. Have a Sharpie. I'd highly recommend putting your name in the bag. As you're working on this, if you want to store it in here, you can, but again, the name's going to be very important. I also have the dowel calipers that you need on the desk. I'm going to give you today and tomorrow to work on this activity, and then we'll actually physically assemble our cubes next week. Also next week on Monday, we will have our quiz for Unit 3 since we are at the end of the unit. So in the next couple of days and over this weekend, if you want to supplement anything in your notebook, I would encourage you to do that before the quiz. When you finish this, make sure you submit it to the LMS, and then next week we will start the next unit.